Cheryl, thank you very much for that introduction and for producing an important topic, an important event on an important topic. And Barbara, it's always great to see you. At the U.S. Chamber, we represent small businesses, large businesses, every industry, every sector. And when I talk to CEOs all across the country, they all bring up one pressing concern, and it's finding qualified workers. So tell us what they might learn from you and how Siemens is doing in filling the jobs of today and tomorrow.
Suzanne, thanks for the opportunity to be here. And for those in the audience who don't know Siemens, I'll just let you know that we are folks who have skills in electrification, automation, digitalization. We're working in industries, in infrastructure and transportation. And so as you can imagine, we have the need for skilled workers in a wide range of fields. And I won't belabor many things that I know all of us are working on, but let me point to something that's rather unique about us. We are actually headquartered in Germany, and it's a country that's known for its apprenticeship model and technical education. And we've now been taking the concepts, that German approach to apprenticeship, and then implementing it with an American accent here in the US. Think about being able to form partnerships with educational systems like community colleges, and then building hands-on programs that give people the opportunity, whether they're starting out a career or whether they're shifting to a new career in the midst of it all, give them the opportunity to learn the skills they're going to need. We think this can scale. And what I'm excited to see is, as we've been building our relationship with K through 12, one of the things we're focused on is extending those apprenticeship programs into high schools. So now in Wendell, North Carolina, where we're committed to building additional electric vehicle car chargers, we've just announced we'll build another 1 million over the next few years. We need workers both in Wendell and elsewhere in the country. And a new apprenticeship program with Wake Technical Community College is actually helping us do that with high school juniors.
So, Barbara, that's so interesting, and I think it addresses a number of questions and issues you and I talked about even before the pandemic, right? Because this worker shortage existed even before the pandemic. But the pandemic certainly made things worse. And we see in our own surveying all kinds of reasons that employees aren't coming back as the economy reopens, maybe in the way that we had hoped. And some cite shifting life priorities, some cite ongoing health concerns or early retirement. What are you seeing in terms of getting employees back to work post the pandemic?
Yeah, wow. At Siemens, we have a wide variety of roles. Some are absolutely frontline, and I would tell you a full 40% of everyone who works here in the US for Siemens is on the front line in one way or another. So people coming into factories every single day, people going into hospitals or transportation systems, and we are relying on those folks. We as a society are relying on those folks. And one of the cool things about what we get to do is there's a very deep sense of purpose embedded in that. Now, what about the employees who have flexibility? Maybe they're not required on site. What we've decided to do is embrace flexibility. You hear a lot of people talking about sort of mandatory back to work. That hasn't been our goal. Our goal has been to give people the flexibility to work wherever they are most effective. And, over these last few months, as people have been discussing the Great Resignation, actually, the thing I've started talking about with our leadership team is, could we turn this into the Great Reassignment? If it's true that people have really, in these last months, searched their souls and decided they really want to be doing something different, well, maybe different could be offered right here within the Siemens Corporation. Perhaps there's someone who has been doing a job in software development and wants to switch into a cyber role. Maybe there's someone who's been a frontline technician who would like to get into the field of finance. We have the ability to make all of that happen within our walls. And I think our leadership team needs to be open to the idea that right now, it is a seller's market for talent. And so if we want to retain our very best, we'll be wise to listen to what they're asking for.
You know, when you think about another pandemic related topic, it's women, and that the pandemic hit women disproportionately hard, that women are leaving the workforce at a somewhat alarming rate. And so, my question to you is, how are you thinking about using the flexibility you just talked about and other tools to make sure you're retaining women, particularly as you strive to get more women into leadership roles?
Yeah, we have had a huge focus on getting women into leadership roles. And you can imagine when you know, we're already in an environment where there's not as large a percentage of women going into the technical fields where we do the kind of hiring. So we've really had to challenge ourselves to think differently about the roles and the sources of talent. And you look at the fields we work in and you see the same story playing out over and over again. I had the opportunity to talk to Carolyn Lee of the Manufacturing Institute, part of the National Association of Manufacturers. And she points out this nationwide shortage of 800,000 people needed in manufacturing. And when you start looking at the underlying data, you realize, wow, if we could close the gender gap by only 20%, we could close the overall, hiring gap in manufacturing by close to 50%. In other words, there are women out there, and if we could only tap into their talents, we could take giant strides forward. Now, how do we go about this? What we've decided is that perhaps we've been looking for talent in the wrong places. And we've made an effort to reach out to different organizations. For those who aren't familiar with Fairy Godboss or Boss Maker, these are both organizations who are tapped into talent networks and who've been able to help our recruiting organization reach an audience who perhaps didn't even know about Siemens. And I'd say people who haven't thought about entering the fields that our customers care so much about. This is a moment when, whether it's manufacturing or whether it's in some of the other pure infrastructure things we're involved in, we're actually seeing a digital transformation everywhere. And we have seen plenty of women entering into fields that call for digital talent. And so you think about all the talent that's been dedicated to, I don't know, entertainment and our retail lives in the digital disruption of the last few years. And if you think about how many of those people could actually turn their talents to the work of this new infrastructure world we're dealing with, it's an exciting time where I think we will see people migrating into our fields. Now, I mean, we started this, and Suzanne, you asked the question about flexibility and aligning it with the needs of women. And it's true that a lot of women have been bearing responsibility for family care. But what we're discovering is that parents need this kind of flexibility. Both men and women want the opportunity to be more flexible in working hours and to be more flexible in work location. One of the things we've even discovered is you might think that that factory job that required a first, second, and third shift, gosh, it's just too rigid. And who would sign up for that these days? Well, I'm proud to say that our leaders in our factories have actually turned on to the idea that maybe they have more flexibility than they thought. Why do we go with pure shifts? Isn't it possible to create more flexible arrival schedules and departure schedules so that we can actually tailor the needs, tailor to the needs of the workforce at that location? These are exciting times where people are questioning everything.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I have 11 follow-up questions to that. Let me ask you a little bit of a lightning round. Let me ask you to pick up on a thread you put down there about STEM. And we know that something, less than 20% of engineers are women, or fewer than 20% of engineers are women. But really, we need more people of both genders going into STEM related fields. So you talked about K through 12 education and partnerships with community colleges. What can the rest of us be doing to get more people into the STEM fields?
Yeah, I mean, all of us who have children ought to be encouraging them to, take as much science and math as they can get in their high school education. And that, of course, lays down a solid foundation. Suzanne, I'll tell you, encourage your kids to play video games. what you'll find is that the tools of engineering are becoming very interactive. And so that the skills we develop as we play games today are going to translate directly into the kind of work that needs to be done in the engineering framework of the future. I know it's counterintuitive, but trust me on this. This is an exciting time when engineering is going to become a lot more fun. Then I'll tell you one other thing. I'm encouraging people to think about their careers differently. Careers now are going to last decades longer than we might have assumed when we were youngins. And, here I am closing out 40 years in a career, hoping for another good, decade or two ahead of me. And it's never too late to get started. These days, a lot of educational institutions are offering stackable credentials. We can take a course here, a course there, and pretty soon, you know what? We've got the qualifications that it'll take to actually earn ourselves a position in some technical field that we might have thought was out of reach for us. Now is a time to shape our own futures.
I love that. Now is the time to shape our own futures. I think we all need that on our next great t-shirt, just to remind us. So Barbara, let me ask you a question. You talked about flexibility on your factory floors and thinking about shifts in a new way, et cetera. And I think some of the people that are watching might be intrigued by that, but think, wow, that's a big company solution and I'm a small company. And so talk to us about how you collaborate with smaller companies and how they can learn from the experiences you're having.
Well, first of all, let's question what is a big company. A big company is nothing more than the aggregation of a whole lot of teams. And it's always, 2 or 3 strong leaders making a decision to do something differently, and then being empowered to go make change locally. Oh, this is the key lesson from the pandemic, that we can't rely on command and control systems. We have to create lightweight frameworks and give people who are close to the issues we're dealing with the freedom to do what's right in their situation. Now, when we deal with small companies, and we do, a huge network. In fact, this week we'll be celebrating our Supplier Diversity Awards, and it's always so much fun to meet those suppliers who have really stood out from the rest of the crowd. And what we're finding is that those innovative suppliers who get very focused on, hey, what is the customer need? What am I actually delivering? And then questioning everything else, really not taking anything for granted, but questioning those premises and assumptions gives them the ability to be creative.
That's so interesting, because we talk about this a lot, that it isn't really big companies and small companies, it's an ecosystem. And you're talking about the ways that you can learn from the agility of some of your smaller suppliers. I think that's an important lesson. So Barbara, as always, I could talk to you forever. These issues are so important and you're a leader in this field. What a great way to start this Talent Forward conversation. Thank you very much for being with us.
And thank you for convening on this really important topic.
And thanks to all of you for joining this important conversation. The future of our workforce is a lot to do with the future and security and competitiveness of America. So thank you very much.